And ultimately, I mean, let's be honest about why this move was made. With all the outfield depth that they have, you think maybe there's room for a move if they have decided already that Hunter Renfroe doesn't have a future with his team, and I wouldn't be surprised if they make a move on from him somehow. But obviously, Manny Margot, I think he's 25 years old and a bat that they can develop and a nice defensive piece that they want to keep. Yoshi, a guy, he's on contract for next year that could play the outfield. Obviously, Kiermaier, they have guys already in the outfield, so why are they bringing in this Brett Phillips character? And you start to look at where Kevin Kiermaier is at with the Rays. Kiermaier's 30 years old. Obviously, the Rays would know. They have the trainers looking at him and stuff like that. I'm thinking maybe Kiermaier's got a bit of a back issue, not just because of the back strain or whatever that he had in the last game in the middle of the at-bat, but just I never seen him do all this exorbitant stretching with the back before every at-bat, and you see him always stretching out the back in the outfield. I mean, he's getting old, 30 years old for a guy that does what he does. One of the fastest players as far as ground he can cover in the outfield and the crazy diving plays, banging into the outfield wall and things like that. So, I mean, it makes sense that could take a toll over time, and I'm not saying he has a bad back, but the Rays would know potentially if he did. He's 30 years old, and then you look at his contract, and this is not the Rays do not pay this kind of money to players. Obviously, they offered him the deal, and he took it. He was supposed to make $10 million this year. With the prorated, it's around $3 or $4 million, I believe. But next year, he is scheduled to make $11.5 million. In 2022, he is scheduled to make $12 million. And in 2023, he is scheduled to make $13 million. So that's a lot of money. And if he's not going to be healthy, he's not going to be his same self. If he's not the outlaw, a platinum glove player in the center field, he's not worth that kind of money for the Rays. They can put that money elsewhere. I mean, they paid Charlie Morton $15 million a year, and look at the value that they got out of him. They can, put that money potentially to better use if Kiermaier's not going to be that same player. And then you look at a Brett Phillips contract situation. Obviously, with the minor league kind of deal, he'll make some sort of variety from $500 to $600,000 a year, which obviously is a lot better than 10 or 11 million. I don't have to tell you that. No arbitration until 2022. So obviously, again, in 2021 and 2022, I believe he's going to be, $500,000, $600,000, and then arbitration. You can either sign him to avoid arbitration, or it's kind of a mediator that looks at stats and things like that and determines the player's value. So anywhere from maybe 2 to 3 million if he really starts to kind of turn things around in his late 20s. So arbitration years 22 to 24, and then he hits free agency in 2025, which will be, I believe, after his age 31 season, or going into his age 31 season. So at that point, the Rays may just decide to let him walk in free agency anyway. So when you look at it that way, I think it kind of lines up where the Rays are looking at this thing. Obviously, they're going to probably give him an audition. I wouldn't imagine the Rays are going to be moving Kiermaier at the deadline. I think he's a crucial part of this team, the way it's, the outfield is constructed around him. I originally look at this trade and I'm like, oh yeah, they're still trying to do the two-man outfield, have Brett Phillips and Kevin Kiermaier, the two deep safeties. But you look at the way the contract is set up, and it can't be denied. I think the Rays kind of are telling their hand this way. And I mean, a team like, I don't know, I guess it's kind of a bad example that they wouldn't trade him to the Yankees, but a team like the Yankees, their center fielders right now is a 31-year-old Aaron Hicks, and I think a mid-30s Brett Gardner, who doesn't really have a long-term future with the team. They don't have a center field guy right now. So a team like that, obviously they won't trade him because it's their biggest rival basically right now. But a team like that's willing to give up that kind of, what do the Yankees care about paying Kiermaier $10 million a year? They're paying Garrett Cole $320, I think, over 12 years or something bizarre like that. So that kind of money doesn't deter those teams. You get the idea. There's contending teams that would love a platinum glove, very much plus defender out there in center field, because the Rays are proof that it really does make a difference. They've been so good as far as run prevention, not just with pitching and the low ERA, but the defensive efficiency as well. And Kevin Kiermaier has been a big part of that. But obviously the Rays aren't ever tied to anyone. They traded Evan Longoria, when it seemingly still looked like he had stuff left in the tank in his early 30s, and the money that was on his contract, wasn't worth what they were going to get from him. And I think that's a good parallel as well. A fan favorite, maybe not as much so as Longoria is, but that only goes to the point of, if the Rays are going to trade Longoria, why wouldn't they trade Kiermaier? So obviously they're not afraid of doing that. I don't think Kevin Kiermaier in his, age 31, 32, 33-year-old seasons, I could be completely wrong, but as far as the Rays are concerned, I'm not sure that's worth, the 11.5, 12, or $13 million that they'll be scheduled to pay him. So obviously they're going to give him an audition at some point. I think Brett Phillips will play some center field at some point this year, and if they can get the bat working. My idea is they're probably going to look to trade Kevin Kiermaier in the offseason.